In this video, you're going to learn 3 reasons that you need to start preparing for your Easter worship services right now. Coming up. Hey, my name is Spencer Cormany from leadingworshipwell.com, your daily dose of practical worship leading tips. If you want to find those tips, head over to Instagram or Facebook at Leading Worship Well, where I'm posting new worship leading tips every single day. But you're here on YouTube, so go ahead, hit the subscribe button down below, and let's get into it, because today it's time to start talking about Easter. I know we're like 5 weeks out as of when this video goes live. I'm not sure when you're watching it, but if you're watching it after it's already been posted, we're probably even closer than that. So we're getting close to Easter, and I want to share with you why you need to start preparing right now, because I know how it is. A lot of us, it's like, okay, it's like a month out. Like a month seems like an eternity. And then you start thinking about all of the things that you have to actually get ready for Easter, whether it's, picking out songs, that's a given, but maybe there's special elements that you're incorporating into your services. Maybe there's additional services on the week of Easter that you need to prepare for. It all adds up, and there's a ton to do. And so we want to start preparing early. We don't want to procrastinate. Are you a procrastinator? Let me know in the comments below. I used to be a procrastinator, but I don't think I am anymore, because I know these 3 reasons of why we need to start preparing early. So let's head into what those reasons are. The first reason that you need to start planning early for Easter, like right now, 5 weeks out, or however far out this is when you're watching the video, is because of something that I call the slow cooker theory, or the crock pot theory, whatever you want to call it. I think that's like a regional thing, depending on where you're from. You call it different things, but you know that kitchen appliance that you throw stuff into and let cook for a while and leave it during the day while you're at work or whatever, unless you watched This Is Us and you don't want to leave your crock pot on. Sorry, is that too soon? Anyways, this is called the crock pot theory, and that is that the longer you allow something to cook or marinate, the better it gets. There's like different settings on a slow cooker. You can cook it on high, and in the recipe it says cook it on high for like 2 or 3 hours or whatever, and it'll be good. Or you can cook it on low for 7 or 8 hours, and it's gonna work too. And it's probably gonna be better if you give it longer to cook, because the flavors develop, the meat gets more tender if you're cooking meat. Whatever it is, it gets better. And the same is true with our ideas, our creativity. The longer you allow your ideas to marinate or cook, the better they get. So yes, you could plan like 2 weeks out before Easter and probably get stuff done. Like you'd rush to get it done, but you'd finish what you need to finish. But that's like cooking a crock pot recipe on high. And we don't want to cook things on high. We want to cook them on low, because they taste better, or when it comes to our creative ideas, they become better. And I just want to share what that actually looks like. So let's say you have a special element in your Easter service that you're planning for. If you plan it 2 weeks out, you've got like your first draft, and you don't really have time for anything else but your first draft. You're just like, okay, this is the idea, I'm going to get it done. But whenever you plan 5 weeks out, 3 months out, maybe you started right after Christmas planning for Easter. That's awesome if you did that. What happens is you plan the idea, maybe you get together with a team. You actually have time to meet with a team to work on these ideas, and things are better whenever you work together. And so now you've got this idea, but then you've got at least a month more until it actually has to be completed. And what happens in that month time is, number one, yes, you have more time to physically work on it or mentally think about it. But I think the slow cooker theory really applies more to those moments where you're not even consciously thinking about the idea. Maybe you've experienced this in worship ministry before. You have an idea, and it's like, okay, this is an idea that I need to develop. And so you try to work on it, and you try to work on it some more, and nothing's really developing. And the development doesn't happen until you stop consciously thinking about that idea. And then all of a sudden you're like in the shower or, I don't know, cooking dinner one night and a thought pops into your head and you're like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing to incorporate into this idea. And I think that the slow cooker theory, that's what it is. It's allowing your thoughts to marinate in the back of your mind. It's like when you leave the crock pot on and go to work and then come back and it's ready, unless you watched This Is Us and you don't do that anymore. And so you just let it marinate in the back of your mind and you're not really thinking about it, but the idea is getting better simply because you've given it more time. So that's the number one reason I think that you should be preparing for Easter right now, is because you're going to have so much more time to let your ideas marinate and they're just going to get better. So if you want a better product, better creative element, however you want to phrase it, in your Easter service, if you want a better Easter service and be able to lead your church in worship well, or whatever other elements you have in your Easter service as well, and you want them to be as good as they can possibly be, start planning right now so this slow cooker theory can start to happen in the background. On to number 2. The second reason that you should start preparing right now, today, right after you watch this video, is because you'll be able to set up your volunteers for success. What happens when the leader of a worship ministry is unprepared is that the volunteers for the worship ministry are unprepared as well, because they don't know what they're doing. I get messages occasionally from people who are on worship teams and they're frustrated that their worship team leader sends out the songs on Thursday night and they don't have time to prepare for the song. So they show up and they don't feel like they're doing the best job that they can possibly do. And I completely understand that. I think that's right. As leaders, we want to be getting our volunteers the resources that they need as early as we possibly can. And that's true every single week, every single Sunday service that we're preparing for, but even more so for Easter if you've got extra things that you're planning for, because we don't want to shove a bunch of extra responsibilities on our volunteers and not give them extra time to prepare for those things that they need to prepare for. So whether that's okay, maybe you're leading a new song this Easter season, let your team know that. Don't surprise them with a new song the week before. Or maybe there's an element in the service. I keep talking about these, and that's I don't know, people do special pieces for their Easter services, whether it's a video or a special song, or maybe you have a dance, whatever's going on, and your worship team is involved with that. You want to let your worship team know as early as possible, at least 3 weeks out, maybe a month out. Just at least tell them that this is going to happen, and then fill them in on the details as you go along, and start practicing those things in your worship rehearsals before Easter actually comes. Don't make the first time you rehearse these special elements on Easter Sunday. So prepare early, because when the leader is well prepared, that gives the volunteers the chance to be well prepared as well. Finally, the third reason, and this is my favorite, the third reason that you should start preparing for Easter right now is because if you start preparing right now for Easter, guess what? You might actually be able to take a day off the week of Easter. Think about what your Easter was like last year whenever it came to worship leading. Were you overwhelmed the week of Easter? Were there a million things that you needed to get done? So it was Monday and you looked at your to-do list and you're like, there is no way in the world that I'm going to be able to get all this done. And so you worked and you worked and you worked, and now it's Friday and you're like, man, I usually take Fridays off, but I still don't have time to get stuff done, so I need to work on Friday, and then that bleeds into Saturday. And then what happens? You show up on Sunday, Easter Sunday, and you walk into church and you're exhausted and you're tired and you're so overwhelmed from all the work that you had to do during the week that you don't actually get a chance to lead your church well because you're working from exhaustion. So don't stumble into Easter Sunday, but waltz in the resurrection power of Jesus, because you have experienced a Sabbath during the week. And the only way you're going to be able to experience that is, number one, if you commit to it. I wrote a post about taking a day off the week of Easter. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. I share with you the steps that you need to take to actually take a day off the week of Easter. And one of those steps is to start preparing early. But yeah, start preparing early so that you aren't overwhelmed that week before Easter. You work on these things the weeks leading up, and then you just get to experience the joy of Easter like everybody else. Sure, there's still a million other responsibilities that you have to take care of. I'm not going to downplay those. I know that there's a lot to do regardless on the week of Easter, whether you prepared early or not. But the earlier you prepare, the less there is to actually do on the week of Easter. And like I said, that enables you to lead so much better on Easter Sunday because you're not exhausted. You get to be refreshed before you lead. And I think that that's so important. You know, there's busy seasons in church ministry, and just because there's a busy season, that doesn't mean that you get a pass on rest. Doesn't mean that you get to say, you know what, God, like, I don't need to rest this week. God still wants you to rest. He wants you to be refreshed. So put in the work, yes, but also enjoy a little bit of downtime, a little bit of rest so that you can lead that much better on Easter Sunday. Now, if you're really confused about how to start preparing for your Easter services, or maybe I've inspired you to start preparing right now, I put together a free resource for you. It's called 7 Days to Leading Easter Worship Well. And what it is a 7-day practical devotional for worship leaders just like you who are preparing for Easter and who have decided to prepare early, at least 7 days out. And what it does is it walks you through the steps of preparing for your Easter services. So I talk about how to engage people who only come once a year or twice a year. Maybe they only come on Easter and Christmas. You need to think about those people in your planning. We talk about some worship songs that you can include in your Easter services. We talk about what to do after Easter. So go download that free devotional. There's a link in the description below and work through it. And it's going to help you get prepared to lead this Easter. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name's Spencer Cormany from leadingworshipwell.com. And until I see you next time, keep leading worship well.